slideshow. Yeah.
Okay, at this time I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to change the meeting a little bit tonight, the way we begin. As you know, our country celebrated Memorial Day yesterday. This is a day that we set aside to honor our fallen comrades who have sacrificed their lives for us and for our country. In the past, the city of Placerville has been included in the annual Veterans Day program. Unfortunately, even though we requested to be, we were not included this year. I do want to thank Supervisor Veerkamp for including our name in his introduction to the county's proclamation. However, we too have a proclamation, and since we were not able to present it at yesterday's memorial, with the consensus of my council and staff, I would like to read it tonight. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Placerville declaring May 25th, 2015 as Memorial Day in recognition of those that fell in our nation's defense. Whereas, for over 2 centuries, brave men and women have laid down their lives in defense of our great nation, and on this Memorial Day we honor the generations of Americans who have fought and died to defend our freedom. And whereas today, Americans from all backgrounds and corners of our country serve with valor, courage, and distinction in the United States Armed Forces, standing shoulder to shoulder with the giants of our nation's history, writing their own chapter in the American history. And whereas it is our sacred duty to preserve the legacy of these brave Americans and strive to uphold the founding principles that they fought and died defending. And whereas on this day, we observe Memorial Day as a day of remembrance in honoring the generations of Americans who have fought and died to defend our freedom. Now therefore I, Patty Borelli, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the City of Placerville, State of California, do hereby proclaim May 25th, 2015 as Memorial Day in recognition of those that fell in our nation's defense and call upon the citizens of our community to pay tribute to the brave men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice so we may uphold the ideals we all cherish. Mayor Patty Borelli. And at this time, our Vice Mayor Carol Patton has a few words to say. No, I'm going to do you first.
Good evening. I wanted to tell a brief story about how Memorial Day, a soldier killed in action approximately 40 years ago, has affected me today. Back in the Roman times, when a soldier was killed in battle, his grave marker was honored with a coin. Today, the tribute still prevails. And in 2014, and a quarter, if you lay a quarter on their grave marker if you were present when they died. You lay a dime if you served with the soldier, or you lay a nickel if you knew that soldier. So in 2014, 7 over 60-year-old men traveled from the 1st Cavalry Reunion in Chicago, Illinois, to Colchester, Illinois, to pay homage to a gravesite of a man by the name of Victor DeMott. They found his mother via the internet. They bought a 1st Cav Stetson. They marked the Stetson with all the pins that Victor was honored with, including the Bronze Star and numerous others. They presented his mother with the Stetson, and they each laid quarters on this man's gravesite in Colchester, Illinois. And the reason I'm telling you this is this 22-year-old draftee from Illinois took the place of my fiancé 7 days prior to the day he was dead. So I give thanks for Victor and for Victor's mother and his sister. And I don't forget that their loss has been my gain, because had it not been for Victor, Rick Dyer would have been in that position as assistant gunner all those years ago and would probably not be here today because of that. Most of the men, I don't know, Rick could tell the story of how many men were wounded that day, Rick Dyer included. And then eventually he was discharged honorably and came home. But Victor never made it home except in a box with a flag. So I give thanks for Memorial Day, that we can honor these people that died in action. And I give thanks for Rick Dyer.
Thank you, Carol. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Specialist 4th Class Rick Dyer and ask him to come forth and lead us in prayer. And after that, I'm going to have him lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand, please.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, as we celebrated Memorial Day yesterday, I just pray, Father, that each day in our hearts we would remember Memorial Day and celebrate those that have given their full measure of duty, Lord, their very lives in protecting our country. Father, it is because of them that we enjoy the freedoms and the liberties that we have today. Let us not forget that, Father. I thank you, Father, and I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. You want to stay there just once, Rick? 1 second more. I think it's appropriate that I give this to you, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Patty. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'll ask for roll call, please. Here.
Councilmember Fleury.
Here.
Vice Mayor Patton.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Wolf.
Here.
Okay, announcements, presentations to the public. Introduction of new police department employees, Chief Heller.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. If I could have Kara and Helen stand up. Kara on the right, Helen on the left. Kara Roulette is a new police dispatcher, records technician with the department. She's a lateral dispatcher, so she comes to us with quite a bit of experience, approximately 12 years or so with the Atascadero Police Department. She has 3 children, 2 teenagers and 1 on the brink. And and she enjoys, when she's not at work, hanging out with her family and soccer and running. And next to her is Helen Summer, who is our newest volunteer. And Helen has a daughter, a grandson, and she lives up in Camino. And she moved to our area approximately 11 years ago from down in Stockton. She's a retired administrative assistant from the Bank of Stockton. And her hobbies include swimming and auto racing, spectator. Yeah. And she's a really great addition to the department. She's already jumped into a lot of clerical type functions that we greatly appreciate. So anyway, these are our 2 newest employees.
Welcome.
I'd also, if I could, take a moment to introduce Jan Melnico from the NAMI organization. Jan would like to say a couple quick words from NAMI and partnership that we've shared with the police department.
Okay. Good evening, and this is Jan Melnico. I'm with NAMI El Dorado, National Alliance on Mental Illness, and also the El Dorado County Mental Health Commission. This is a joint effort. I'm here tonight to present our CIT award, Crisis Intervention Team Award, to one of our police department's officers. And for those of you who don't know what CIT is, it's a program that was developed to help law enforcement personnel react appropriately to situations involving mental illness or developmental disabilities. Police commonly respond to people with mental illness and crisis throughout the United States. That's who we call when someone's in trouble. And except for mental illness, dialing 911 is going to get you through to someone for a medical emergency. And you get EMTs trained to respond to those situations. However, for 911 with a psychiatric emergency or a mental health emergency, it's our police department who arrives, or our sheriff. And without adequate mental health training, responses to psychiatric emergencies are often ineffective and sometimes fatal. So a number of communities have responded admirably by implementing crisis intervention team programs and training officers on methods for de-escalating crisis situations. And we are here tonight to also commend our police department and all of our law enforcement in our county for stepping up to this role of making sure that we can respond appropriately to those individuals in these kinds of crises. This crisis intervention simply saves lives for both officers and those who are having the crisis. And so tonight I'd like to award this, give this award to Placerville Police Department's Officer of the Year is Officer Jim Caiaphas. His patience in dealing with the subjects involved with 2 separate incidences this year help resolve their situations and find long-term solutions. Officer Caiaphas, sorry, I practiced, but assisted one subject who has a relative in a care home whom he believed was receiving maltreatment. Officer Caiaphas investigated this complaint and assisted the subject with peacefully resolving the situation and determined that his relative was getting the care they should receive at the home. The care home employees reported that the subject was very difficult to deal with, and a large number of his complaints were not valid. Officer Caiaphas delicately assisted both parties in coming to a resolution so the relative would still receive the needed care at the facility and the subject's issues were resolved. In a separate incident, Officer Caiaphas assisted a subject who law enforcement had dealt with many times. Often these folks in our community are dealt with many times over a long period of time. This subject threatened to kill himself and others with a gun on several occasions. The subject had a traumatic brain injury, which caused his erratic behavior. Officer Caiaphas was able to work with the subject and peacefully retrieve his weapons that he was no longer allowed to have. Officer Caiaphas also worked with the DA's office to have the subject receive court-ordered help instead of incarceration for his actions. Officer Caiaphas' manner in which he went out of his way to assist these subjects demonstrates the characteristics of an officer deserving of the Crisis Intervention Award. So, is he here this evening? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Chief Heller, did you want to lead this?
Well, I just want to say real quick, thanks to Jim, and he exemplifies exactly what Jan said, the crisis intervention application in the field. Over the past couple of years, the Placerville Police Department's been able to actually train all of its police officers to be certified in crisis intervention training. And here this past year, we actually did some work with Folsom PD and getting some advanced training for the officers that have the basics. So we're committed to this. We've sat and discussed with Jan things we can do to improve the collaboration and relationship we share, including some grant work, et cetera. And anyway, thanks to Jan, the president of NAMI, and thank you, Officer Caiaphas.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say thank you, everyone. Due to the training, the CIT training, it has helped me deal with multiple levels of my job, and I appreciate it. So it's very nice to be recognized but I'm just doing the job I signed up for. So thank you very
Well,
much.
we're
you guys.
glad you're there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're very proud of our police department, and this is just another reason why. And Jan, thank you and your group, NAMI, for all that you do too. It's a very special group. Thank you. Okay, we have no closed session report. Adoption of the agenda.
I'll move the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have no ceremonial matters. Public comment. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. State law prohibits the council from acting on items not listed on the agenda except by special action of the city council under specified circumstances. The mayor reserves the right to limit the speaker's time to 3 minutes. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name for the record. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Please give any written material presented at the meeting to the city clerk for the public record. Do we have any written communication? Okay, at this time, anyone from the public wishing to come forth and speak on any item, please do so. Okay, seeing no one, we'll move to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. The reading of the full text of all resolutions will be waived unless a council member requests otherwise. Do I hear any requests?
I'll make a motion we adopt the consent calendar as listed.
I'll second.
Public comment.
I'm going to call for it. Would anyone in the public care to address any of the items that are mentioned?
Susan Rodman, resident of Placerville. 8.6 is a wonderful idea to let this officer adopt his dog that has been his companion for years now. And the other one that I would like to speak on is 8.8 for additional funding for the Placerville Drive bridge replacement. I would like to suggest that if it's possible to take any of the Clay Street money and use it for this bridge that is so much more needed and is used by everyone. I would certainly support that if it's a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And as far as I know, the answer is no. Each one of the bridges are an individual, grant rewards. So, okay. Anyone else caring to come in on anything on the? Okay, seeing no one. It's been moved and seconded. Poll ball.
Pole ball, that sounds fun.
Now we're going to have a
At least
poll ball.
at least you remembered this time. This is
Mayor Borelli.
Yeah, aye.
Hopefully the mic works this time. Mayor Borelli,
Aye.
Chairman, Councilmember Clarici,
aye.
Vice Mayor Patton,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Aye.
Okay, we have no items that were pulled, no ordinances, no public hearings scheduled. Discussion action items. 12.1, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Placerville adopting rates for the collection of solid waste within the City of Placerville franchise area. Mr. Morris?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, each year at this time, there is within our contract with El Dorado Disposal a provision to look at the rates based on different indexes, one for fuel and one for the Consumer Price Index, to consider any rate increase that might be appropriate. Tonight we will have a presentation by Jeff England of El Dorado Disposal, and he will go through some of the factors that are considered and then the rates also. I want to just mention quickly that good news this year, we're actually seeing a rate reduction due to the fuel component that is part of the total index that we looked at. One correction that I wanted to make before I turn it over to Jeff is on the table that you see on the first page of your staff report under the senior 35-gallon cart weekly senior. That rate does not change. It stays at $16.24. The reason for that is, and Jeff can talk to it more perhaps, is that that rate, as we've increased over the last at least 2 years, maybe longer than that, I know, we haven't increased. We've left that rate constant over the years rather than increase it as the others have, because it is the senior rate. So we did not feel it was appropriate to reduce that one, even though the others are reducing, because it hasn't increased over the years. So the chart that's attached to your resolution is correct, but it did not get changed in the staff report. There was a correction late in the program. So
Okay.
with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff England.
Okay, welcome back, Jeff.
Glad to be back. Thank you, Mayor Borelli. Jeff England, District Manager, El Dorado Disposal. Pleasure to see you, Council. Thank you for having me. I'd like to work through our annual review, if I may. I'd like to speak to first our residential service, and very happy to report that of the 2,740 residents that we serve in Placerville, 2,703 of those are recycling. Of those, 326 have more than one recycle cart. So Placerville is doing a great job on the diversion and recycle front there. Also very happy to report that of those customers, 2,357 are participating in the green waste program, which means they've got green waste carts out there, and 268 of those customers have more than one green waste cart, which is great and very helpful for diversion also. I'd like to add that each year we provide Placerville customers with 2 vouchers so that they are able to take bulky items, appliances, and such things either to the MRF and have us come curbside and pick those up free each year. We provide each new customer with a welcome packet that explains what materials are recyclable and what our services are, and we look forward to getting ourselves out to a variety of events and outreach opportunities throughout the city and throughout the county. Would like to share, if I don't break this here, that our community cleanups, which are very much a teamwork project with the city, were successful last year, that we collected nearly 50 tons of trash at the community cleanups this last year, over 8 tons of green waste, over 3 tons of recycling, and that Snowline Hospice was benefited by collecting over 10,000 pounds of e-waste, clothing, and household items this year. We picked up 179 bulky items curbside this last year, and we also happy to remind folks that we have a curbside battery and used oil jug program. All folks have to do is call our office, and we're happy to arrange to have our drivers pick that up, those things up curbside. Our buyback centers enable folks to bring in recycling items for rebates, and we also take now alkaline batteries, fluorescent tubes, bulbs, and e-waste there. We have a call blast capability so that we can notify residents of any changes regarding service or any important information along those lines. As I stated before, we really enjoy getting out in the community, taking advantage of outreach opportunities. Among those this last year, we do school visits, we have field trips to our place. We like to show off our compost garden, our Worms in Action. We participate in Summer Spectacular, numerous events like Ag Day and the Home Expo, where we're able to get out and demonstrate to folks what they can recycle and how. Last year, we also initiated our Pink Cart program last year, enabling breast cancer awareness. And if you drive around town on trash days, you'll see some cute little pink carts out there. I know Councilmember Wilkins has one. And they not only reinforce breast cancer awareness, but they're the smallest size possible cart to enable and encourage recycling as well. On the commercial front, get over here. We have 398 commercial customers in the city of Placerville. You might remember the state passed a law a few years ago that said any commercial customer who does 4 yards or more, cubic yards or more per week of trash has to have a recycling program of some type. We have. We are down to 387 customers that we are now participating in recycling. We've got 11 left to get into a recycling program. Most of those are multifamilies who are challenged with space and things of that nature, but we have a full-time sustainability coordinator who works directly with our commercial customers. She will be out to do site visits, which each of those every year, and we are working to get those 11 on board as well. Again, our commercial outreaching, messaging on statements, and for new packets to encourage folks to start recycling right off the bat. Our performance standards. We have performance standards that we are required to comply with, and I'd like to review those very quickly if I may. Our call time, as you know, we are happy to provide a local service center. Last year, we received 10,380 calls from Placerville residents. We were able to average 42 seconds of wait time per call there, which keeps us well within the city requirement of 75 seconds. Last year, we had 2 complaints and 5 compliments on our complaint log, and so that keeps us within your good graces there as well. We had no complaints on littering last year within the city of Placerville. We worked very hard at that. We really work on our drivers to get out of that truck and pick up a mess if we leave one, and I'm happy to see that in Placerville we had nobody call and say, hey, you left a big fat mess out here. We have reports that we are required to provide to the city. We've got to be timely with those. They involve diversion to the state. They're very important. The state pays very close attention to that. And we were on time with all our reports this last year also. I can ballpark that we did about 142,480 trash pickups in the city of Placerville last year. We have a requirement that we're not to miss more than 5 for every 1,000 of those, and we were well within our acceptable boundaries on missed pickups last year. And again, if anytime a customer calls, says, hey, you missed me this year, we're able to get back the same day, next day, and pick that up, then that's a successful pickup for us. All right. Well, the good news this year. Your rates are going down. Because Placerville was wise enough to maintain fuel surcharge. What we've had occur this year, there are two variables that come into play with your rates each year. One is the consumer price index, one is the fuel surcharge. Because oil prices have been friendly and fuel prices have actually come down, and the fuel surcharge was greater than the amount of the consumer price index, the net is a rate decrease for Placerville residents this year. As you can see by the chart here, that they, that each of the different areas are coming down slightly, and then the same amount also applies to the commercial customers as well. Okay. Did we say the stuff? Do the stuff we said we were going to do last year? Programs implemented in 2014. We have jurisdictional recycling program, and really what that is our sustainability coordinator identifies customers who we don't pick up their material, they self-haul. Typically that's large retailers, folks of that nature, and by working directly with them, we're able to capture that data and then report that, which helps Placerville's diversion rate with the state. And so that's something that we are making progress at. We've had good teamwork with several of the big retailers, and so we're able to identify the cardboard, shrink wrap, things like that, that they actually ship out themselves and recycle. We're able to capture that data and then incorporate it into the diversion reports. Also happy to report that we've initiated a food waste pilot program this year, and we have Hog Wild working with us on that one. We are working to expand that program. It's still very much in the baby steps, you might say, but we're very excited about that. We have a location in Sacramento. We're able to take the material down to that converts it into compressed natural gas. And we'll be looking to expand that program as well. I'm very excited about upgrades to our website and a new tool that's on our website called the Widget. It's a web-based tool that enables folks to check their own calendars. They can sign up to receive updates from us. It's got a phone app, all kinds of cool high-tech stuff that I don't really know much about, but it's really enhancing our ability to provide real-time information to our customers and allow them to go on. They can go in there and look, and they can identify, use batteries. Click on that, and it will explain to them what can be recycled in the battery world and how. So it's very friendly, user-friendly, and provides very immediate information about recycled materials and other such things. Folks can get emergency notifications if it's snowing and we have to interrupt service and that sort of thing. All right. And we'll be able to do bulky requests online very soon as well, which I think will be very handy for folks. All right. Well, what are we rolling out in 2015? Our website, again, is being overhauled, and we're about ready to unveil that. It shouldn't be too much longer. I'm going to show the front page of it here pretty soon. That's a big one for us. We're very excited about textile recycling. We've set up, people can bring used clothing and such materials now to our buyback centers and other sites to donate clothing, and then that material is taken down to a plant in Sacramento and recycled now, and that's something that we've just started this last year. I get to show at the end something you may have seen, which is the truck wraps that we have here. We are working with Craig Koski, a photographer who's right here on Main Street. He was the first guy that we went and talked to and said, hey, we'd really like to teamwork this project with you. Main Street Placerville was the first one that we did. And I don't mind saying we're really proud of the truck wrap program. And we're going to show it off a little bit at the end of the presentation here. Again, we're expanding the commercial food waste program. And one other thing I want to show off a little bit, this Neighborhood Watch sticker is going on our trucks right now. We've participated with the county's STAR volunteer program. They've provided training for our drivers on what to look for when they're out and about. As you know, we're out and about very early in the morning while it's still dark, and we're in neighborhoods and around commercial establishments, and we're really happy for the training. It really achieves a couple of things for us with our drivers. One is greater awareness of their surroundings. It's really a fundamental safety aspect for us, but it also reinforces for our drivers our relationship as community partners. And so being participatory in the Neighborhood Watch program and having the stickers on our trucks is something that we're very proud of for this next year. All right. All right, there's all that cool new stuff. Okay, there's our new webpage. We're really looking forward to getting that out and rolling. It'll be much more user-friendly and very interactive for folks that want to learn more about us and how that they can do more recycling and the different programs that we have going on this year. And then that's our baby. Again, I can't say enough about Craig Koski down the street. He's also done wonderful work for us with some pictures for the county, the orchards. We have one for Cameron Park Lake coming out soon, and we've got one from El Dorado Town Center as well. But this is my favorite. I think it's just a really cool picture, and he just did great work with that, and I think it represents Placerville really well. We also have on the back of the trucks now, we're able to identify upcoming events. And we've got 4 Placerville events. If you're driving around the truck or our Placerville trucks and you pull up behind it, you'll see dates for 4 events that are coming up in Placerville for this summer. And so that is my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Gosh, congratulations on everything.
Well, thank you.
You guys
Thank
are
you, Mayor.
really enterprising. It's
Well,
wonderful.
we take our relationship and community partnership very seriously, and we love working with Placerville.
And we
Cleve
appreciate
and Pierre, and you guys just do a great job team working with the state and the diversion programs. Those things are very important, and we really have a true partnership and teamwork there. So
Well,
thank you.
I think by the numbers that you presented, it shows that it's all working well. So,
Appreciate that.
any council members have any comments?
Question. When's the next community cleanup day?
Community Cleanup Day may need to be set. We just had one about 3 weeks ago at the bus station up there. I hope you didn't miss that one. But we do have another one in the fall. It's typically early October or so. I'm not sure the exact day right now, but I'd be happy to get that out for you folks.
I think I got a notice in my water bill that it's on something on the 26th.
Oh, wait.
June
You guys
27th?
are June.
June
I'm sorry.
27th, yeah.
You asked me a loaded question. I
26th.
appreciate that, Councilman Wilkins, and I wasn't ready for it.
It's
No,
June
I'm off.
27th.
We've done 5 already, and you guys are June this year.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. You saved my fanny on that
It's
one.
on the
Appreciate it.
27th.
No, thanks. Yeah, June 22nd is the date. I should know that.
27th.
27th.
7th? Okay, well, thanks. You got me right. You'll get me right eventually.
We do pay attention.
Yeah, no, somebody has to, clearly. Thank you.
Actually, Pat?
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's a great event. It's up at where the bus station is in the parking lot up there, and that's a true teamwork with the city on that one also.
Okay. Wendy?
I just want to commend you for being such excellent community partners. I mean, the fact that you wrap your trucks and advertise our amazing city is just awesome. I was driving down Cedar Ravine the other day and came upon it and went, oh, that's fantastic. I mean, it's a garbage truck and it looks amazing. It's a work of art.
Don't they look cool? I
Oh, they're
know.
amazing. And the fact that you're advertising events on the back of the truck, I mean, that is just really creative. And I love your creative community approach. I've also had a lot of occasion to use you this year. We've had a major building project this last year, and I'll tell you, you have been incredible to deal with. We've had a lot of construction dumpsters, and there was one day we needed one quick. And your customer service staff was amazing, and that afternoon I had a construction dumpster, and just I can't say enough about your customer service.
Well, thank
and
you.
the fact that you're reducing your rates, governments and utility districts get really bad raps, that we're always, raking our customers over the coals and raising rates. And this is proof that that is not true. And thank you very much for the service you give our community.
Thank you very much. Well, it's really the wisdom of working with the consumer price index and the fuel surcharge. It really keeps things fair and balanced from year to year. So thank you. We appreciate
Jeff, just a
that
real
being
quick
easy, too.
follow-up on the, Wendy was mentioning the community events. How do you ascertain which events go on the?
Oh, we just no, we
Whoever comes first.
we meet each month with Cleve, and we go over. We've got an agenda that we go through, and we talk all things from diversion and recycle programs, as well as what's going on in the city there. I'll share a little that we had a conversation last month about an event that we're really contemplating, which would be a Recycle Arts Festival, and where and how to pull that off. And we're very interested in doing that in Placerville. And those are the kind of fun things that we talk with Cleve about, as well as diversion and how we're doing with programs and that kind of stuff. And so we have a good back and forth with you guys every month. And so that's really kind of where we learn, what's coming up and what the priorities are, and that sort of guides what ends up on the back of the trucks.
Nice. Carol, did you want to say?
I have a question about the trash dumpsters in the parking structure. And Is there any long-range goal for getting the food out of there, the really smelly
Yes,
trash?
every 2 weeks, and more often as needed in the summertime, we come out, we pressure spray that area around those dumpsters, because we know that that's a problem. Cleve's made it very clear that that's a it's a tough one, because we service there every day in there, but trying to get that smell and stuff out, especially in the summertime, is really a challenge. So we come in and we pressure spray around there, but we've got our targets on everybody in this Main Street area that we would like to get on board with the food waste recycling program, and ultimately that's going to be the best possible solution for getting it out of there, getting it containerized, and then recycled. And the state effectively is going to mandate that we do that anyway, come 2016, 2017, and so on. And so we're just trying to get out ahead of the curve right now and figure out operationally how to do this. Get it picked up, how to do it, safely, not leave a mess. And that does involve working with the restaurants, their backroom folks, as well as the management. And that can be a little bit of a challenge. They tend to take it as, oh, this is an extra thing and one more thing to do. But so far, so good with it. And we do look forward to getting all the really great restaurants on Main Street on that program.
Great.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Okay, 12.2, consider adoption of the following resolution. Oh, I'm sorry, oh,
Don't we need public?
well, no, I'm just gonna forget the whole thing. You weren't supposed to know. Okay, do I have a motion?
Public comment.
Do I have any public comment on this item? Seeing none. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution as dictated in the staff report.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Patton?
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
Okay, 12.2, consider adoption of the following resolutions consenting to the inclusion of Placerville in the Hero and White Green PACE programs. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you recall, at your council meeting on April 14th, the council approved the city of Placerville to participate in the California Statewide Communities Development Authority program for PACE, or Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. Excuse me. At that meeting, the council also directed staff to do further research and bring back consideration for two other programs, the HERO program and the Y-Green program. Staff has done that research and have these two programs to present to you tonight. I'd first like to review the HERO programs just briefly. I'd like to mention we have in the audience with us tonight Eve Perez from the HERO program and Emily Goodwin from the Y-Green program to discuss or answer any questions you may have on these. The HERO program has been around for a long time, probably one of the oldest nationwide program. You can see the numbers that are in the report, the amount of applications and projects that they have funded over the years. Because of its success, they've expanded it. Originally it started in Southern California, Riverside County, and they have now expanded it statewide. You will notice that as part of this program, it requires us to join the Western Riverside Council of Governments, is the JPA. Each of these programs has a joint powers authority that is the umbrella that operates the program, or is the umbrella, has the program, and then these operators actually operate the program. For example, HERO is the program that operates within Western Riverside Council of Governments. They've listed here the benefits that are available, and these are similar to what we presented to you at your last meeting, so I'm not going to go through those in detail. They also list the benefits to the city here. I wanted to make one correction, I guess a correction. We listed in here payroll taxes as a benefit. We don't really receive any of that, so it's not really a benefit to the city, but these are benefits that are received from the program. In order to join the HERO program, it is necessary that we would adopt the first resolution that is listed on your agenda, which is to include us in the city's jurisdiction in the California HERO program for PACE renewable projects. And that will include us an amendment, approving an amendment to the Western Riverside Council of Governments JPA agreement, which would put us in that JPA as an associate member, which means we have very limited rights within that COG, but we also have very limited responsibilities within that COG. And therefore, the reason for that. The agreement has been reviewed by our city attorney and approved, as well as the resolution and the agreement. When we brought the last program to you for California First and Alliance Energy as part of the CSCDA program, they had already gone through what is called a validation process that they have to go through with the courts, and so they were ready to go. With these two programs, it is a little bit different. The HERO program goes periodically as members sign up, they go and do the validation. So for example, at this time, they have a validation scheduled on June 5th, so about 2 weeks away. And if we approve this tonight, we will get the resolution to them immediately, and then they will be able to include us on that validation. They expect that that will take possibly a couple of months, so towards the end of July or in August, they assume that it will be ready to offer the program in Placerville. The Y-Green program is similar in operation. They actually operate under the California Home Finance Authority, which is changing their name to Golden State Finance Authority. That is in process. They also have similar programs. There's a couple of differences, however, with the Y-Green program. Number one, there are two separate laws that are recognized in California to operate these PACE programs. One is within the Mello-Roos law, and one is within the assessment district law. And each of those have different rules and et cetera of how they may operate those. The Y-Green program is currently going through their validation process that has not been completed yet. And depending on, as they proceed and evaluate both programs, they will operate one of the two, either under SB 555 or AB 811. But at this time, to my knowledge, when I last talked to them, they have not determined which of those programs they will operate. So they are asking us to adopt the two resolutions, which would make us eligible to participate under either one of those laws, depending on which one they elect to use in the end. So we would, if you adopt the two resolutions that they have, that we've put before you tonight, those resolutions would make us eligible for those programs. Each of those also has an agreement, the JPA agreement attached to it, which would again make us an associate member of the, got to get the names right, California Home Finance Authority, which is changing to the government's Golden State Finance Authority. So we would become an associate member of that JPA also. Y-Green has been in the validation process, and perhaps Emily, if you like, could speak to this more. When we first talked to them in February, I was told that they were starting the validation process at that time. However, at this time, they still have not been approved through that validation process, so theirs is not up and running yet. However, and again, maybe Emily can explain this further, but they did have a program running at one time. As you recall, a couple of years ago when we looked at PACE programs, this was the program we were looking at, was the Y-Green program at that time.
Did you want Emily to pitch in now?
Let me just finish a couple of things,
Okay.
and then I'll turn it over back to
Okay.
you, and you can look at that. So those are some of the concerns we had. The reason they want us to start now is so that if we approve the program tonight, they will start training and signing up contractors, so that when they get their validation complete, they would immediately be ready to go with contractors. And they hope to meet some of the summer construction period. So that is their reason for asking us to join now, even though they don't have that validation and are not sure which of the two programs yet that they are going to operate. So those are some of the concerns, or some of the things that we saw in reviewing the Y-Green program. Again, the program overall, once up and running, I don't think we've vetted it fairly well. We don't have any concerns with the overall program at this time. But we did have a little bit of concern with the fact that with Y-Green that they're not up and running yet in terms of the validation process and et cetera. So with that, I'll end. If you have any more questions of me, or otherwise you can ask them of either Eve or Emily for those programs.
Council, do you have any questions now, or do you want to wait until you hear the presentations from the ladies?
I have a question. If I remember correctly from the last time we visited this, there is no cost to the city to join these JPAs, or it's like some minimal, or
There's no direct cost.
No
There's
direct
just
cost.
our staff time
bit
and
of
preparing
staff.
reports and getting them to. Once it's up and running, there's really not much there. Now, I did have a phone conference call with Alliance Energy the other day to talk about the startup of their program, and So there's minimal things like that about how we can make the information available to our residents and things like that, but nothing, no direct cost.
And one other question. Program, you know, if you've got, I won't use their real names because I won't remember them, but like, you know, Group A, B, C, and D, and they're all providing the financing for this thing. 2 of them we have, 2 of them we're considering. Does each one of them have a like a licensing process or a list of local contractors? Does each local contractor have to go to each one of these groups and say, "Hi, I'm Acme Widgets, and I want to be on your list"? Do they have to go to each one?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so they would
Yes,
have
they
to-
do, and I think it goes both ways. The contractors go to them, and they seek out the contractors
contractor.
also
Okay.
to get them signed up on their program. So,
okay,
yes.
okay.
Carol, I think, was next.
Well, I'm still struggling with why, is there a reason, except for perhaps the minimal staff time, why we wouldn't just be okay with Y Green and Hero and all the, I mean, the A, B, C, and D? Is there a reason to just hold it to 1 or 2?
No, not really, and that's what, one of the things we found was that that's what a lot of jurisdictions are doing now. They're, even the one we previously joined, which was through California State Finance Development Authority, I forget the name, CSCDA.
Oh, that
Thank
one.
you.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
That works. That's easier to say. And in that case, we were already a member of CSCDA, as you recall.
Mm-hmm.
But by joining that was called an open PACE program, and that's what a lot of jurisdictions are doing. They're starting what's called an open PACE program, which means they basically, as long as they're sound in the JPA that they're part of, et cetera, they open it up to all of those programs, because it creates that competition within your jurisdiction, because they all have minor differences. The interest rates are going to be similar, I think, but there may be differences there that might be
Okay, well, let me rephrase that. Are we going to be looking at this in another year when there's 5 more new Group A, B, C, D, and E that want to join?
I know of one other one right now out there that they approached me initially, but I hadn't heard from a while, and then I got a call last week from them, and that's the Fig Tree program, which is another one.
Oh,
that's,
we talked about
we,
that.
we briefly talked about it, but I hadn't heard from them for a while, so I had not looked further into them. But there could be others out there.
Okay, thanks.
To have multiples, does it make it more difficult or more work for our staff?
Only in the beginning, setting it up. Once it's set up, the only responsibility, the only thing we would have from there is each of these companies, as I've talked to them, do reports that will tell us how they're doing, how many they're signing up, and how things are going and their successes. It's just a matter of us reviewing that, and we can bring it back to council if council's interested in seeing how well the programs are being used.
Wendy, did you have?
Oh, yeah, just a brief question. Is there any requirement to travel to an annual meeting of the JPA with any of these programs?
No.
No? Okay, all right, thanks.
It's optional. We could go, but it's not required.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anyone from out in the audience that would like to come forth with questions or comments?
Evelyn Veerkamp, Placerville. I don't know enough about the programs to have a really sensible question, so maybe I can speak on behalf of all the other people in Placerville who really don't know what we're talking about. Why does the city need to be involved at all? I mean, do you just kind of liaise service providers, or what are you in this? And do citizens ultimately have any kind of responsibility or costs? Are my questions sensible?
Yeah.
Can I sit down while you?
Yes, you can. Anyone else? Okay, with that, I see no one coming forward. I'll bring it back to council, and I'm going to ask Cleve if you would like to answer that question,
Just
please.
like what we're doing here is allowing an assessment district or a Mello-Roos district to be set up. And with anything, even if the city was doing that on our own for some reason, which cities do from time to time, we have some assessment districts, for example, landscape and lighting districts in our jurisdiction currently. In order to allow that district to be set up to finance improvements, or in this case, finance improvements to individual homeowners, we have to give them that authority to do that. The city has to do that. Without that, they could not operate in the city limits because of the state law that requires how those assessment districts or Melrose districts are to be formed. There's that process that is required. I'm looking at Eve and Emily. Is that a good explanation? Thank you.
Okay.
And then on the
Go ahead.
second question, you say, is there any cost to homeowners? Not unless they voluntarily agree to be in the program. If they want to do improvements to their home and want to join this program to do that, they would receive an assessment or the money to do the improvements, and then an assessment is placed on their property taxes to pay for it over 5, 10, 15, up to 20 years, I believe is the maximum. So, but for anybody that does not choose to be part of it, no, there is no obligation, no cost to anybody if you're not part of the program.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask, let's see, we have Rose first, come forward. Is it Rose and Emily?
No.
Is it?
Eve and Emily.
Okay, I've got, where did I get Rose? Okay, she's not here tonight. Eve, would you like to come forward and any additional comments?
Yes, I do want to just reiterate what the city manager has said, where there's no cost, no risk, no admin for the city. It's completely voluntary for your residents. The next item that you have on agenda is addressing the current water crisis, and this is a great way to be able to address that. We have a lot of water efficiency measures that residents can do on their home, including artificial turf and irrigation controls, among many others. So that's one of the big reasons right now why a lot of jurisdictions are moving forward, and more PACE programs just mean more projects. So.
Council, questions? Okay, thank you. Emily.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you again. It's been 6 weeks or so. Thanks so much for reconsidering our program. It's great that you guys have done a little more work to look at Y Green and Hero. I think that you made a great point. The next item is huge right now, and all the PACE programs that you can activate will help, realize all the savings out there in the community, and it takes more than one provider, more than 2 or 3 to really get that work done. Just to clarify, I'm going to speak to a few of the questions that you raised, Cleve, in just a second. With the water conservation, this also finances energy efficiency improvements for residents, but also commercial property owners. So we offer both. That's a really big piece. We also do seismic retrofitting, and we do, of course, solar distributed generation on commercial and residential properties. So I'm going to go back to the SB 555 and 811 model and the discussion of why these two resolutions are needed for Y Green. We actually fully intend to operate under the SB 555 model. We have operated under AB 811 when we did our basically energy districts, where we have established a huge contractor base and huge customer base in Sacramento, Yolo, areas in Southern California, and we're expanding here in El Dorado County as well. So our intention is to operate under SB 555, having both approved through our partnership with Golden State Finance Authority, which is our new JPA that was established in December of last year. Allows for longevity and continuous service delivery to customers, no matter what happens at the state legislature or where the market goes. If it shows that there's more likelihood to capitalize a particular type of project under AB 811, we would certainly have the flexibility to operate in that way. And it would mean not coming back to council to have to approve another resolution to activate. So those are the two pieces of state legislated, finance offerings that PACE can operate under, and we think that it makes sense to adopt both. The statewide validation, we started that process when we joined our, with Golden State Finance Authority, our JPA, and that is a relatively new partnership, so it requires the regular process of going through statewide validation. We're looking to be validated by June 15th, and everything points in that direction, that's an achievable date. Right now we're in the final 30 days where any judgments or statements from the public, that official open period has already passed, and anything that comes in now would have to be seriously considered as to why it waited this long, and what's the relevance and what's the impact. So usually items that come in this last 30-day window are looked at with particular scrutiny, and so far there's been no objection. So I don't know how much, you're probably well familiar with how that works. So we're happy about that in the final stages there. And a couple other things that Hero and Y-Green definitely share in common is a very strong local contractor base. So we have a very viable contractor network, very, very good customer service, presence in the community. These are folks that live and breathe here. Also, the account management team at the corporate level is there to help make sure that contractors stay certified, trained, conflict resolution, anything that comes up with that. We help walk customers and contractors through how to get that done and how to correct things that may go wrong in the process. And so far, we've been really happy with our results. We have a very, very robust contractor base here in this area, and they've been knocking on our doors and just so eager to get activated in Placerville and El Dorado. So we're really looking forward to that. And I think that's it. I could go on, but I want to respect folks' time and open it up for other questions if you have them.
Council? Wendy?
Thank you for coming again, Emily. You talked about the water saving measures, and you mentioned irrigation controls and artificial turf, which unfortunately is not allowed in the city of Placerville at this time. But would drought-resistant landscaping be included in these programs, including the design of that for commercial or residential users?
Yes.
Really?
I don't know about Hero, but yes, I would assume so.
So a complete drought-resistant scape for your home.
The measures that are generally speaking approved for PACE financing are commonplace.
Okay.
Because it's basically what helps scale conservation efforts, water and energy, and what helps scale distributed generation. Okay. So it's run by the state because it's a way of implementing and scaling these initiatives that we're trying to achieve statewide.
We have to achieve.
And how we're going to get there.
Okay.
On a mass scale. So usually they're fairly commonplace, correct? Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
I have a question.
John?
Okay. You folks are a bank, essentially. I'm not bank, I'm using it generically. You're a funding source, correct? That feeds in this program. Because I'm trying to, I should have brought the article with me or found it again. I was reading an article either in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times about how this is becoming an object of some interest for some just your traditional lending institutions to come into the market. It sort of speaks to what you were asking about. Is there potentially going to be 6 or 7 more entities out there? And I was wondering, where does your financing originate from?
From private capital.
So private capital. So okay.
And I can give you those names. I'm happy to do that.
Private capital is fine.
Is it like venture capitalists?
No.
No. Bank.
And traditional PACE programs were financed, so startup, I guess, is probably not the right term, but through the issuance of bonds. Right. And we don't operate that way.
So it's an investment instrument for somebody. They put the money in place, and then you use the money through this program to do whatever it is.
It's a true private-public partnership, in that we can't play in the sandbox unless you all do the due diligence to vet the companies, basically their results, and see if they're qualified, and then we activate in a community. We don't put a burden on existing budget line items, and then we serve our customers the product.
Is there anything that would stop, the Bank of First and Main Street to get involved in these things, to become a funding source for these kinds of programs?
No, and I'm going to actually rely on Eve if I can. I'm 3 months into this position, but I came from a electrical utility in Marin County prior to this position, and PG&E before that. Right. And so when PACE first started, Marin Clean Energy, which is California's first community choice aggregation, they adopted PACE, the California First model, just like many of the other cities and counties. And that's where there was this gap between really the private capital being able to staff and manage a company to sort of be the feet on the street and get these projects built. And those banks had the ability to make those loans, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but so that's still available. It's just not something that really materialized results. Okay. They didn't push the finance mechanism. They pushed other forms of debt.
Okay.
that's,
That's fine. No, that's fine. I was curious.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I think all the questions have been answered. Thank you very much.
thank you.
At this time, I'm going to ask the council, what would you like to do? Would you like some more discussion, or would you like to? No, I'm not being facetious. I'm just. I'm serious. I'm serious. What would you like to do? The recommendation is to consider adoption of the following resolutions consenting to the inclusion of Placerville in the HERO and Y-Green PACE programs. And we have been presented with 3 resolutions.
I would like to move the staff recommendation.
I'll second. Roll call vote, please. Aye.
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 Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for coming. Okay. 12.3, adopt a resolution continuing a drought state of emergency, adopting regulations in accordance with Governor Brown's executive order restricting outdoor watering to 2 days per week and directing city staff to seek state and federal relief whenever possible. Mr. Warren.
I'll take it this time.
Okay, Mr.
If that's
Morris.
okay.
I'm just following what
Dave-
I'm told on this little sheet of paper.
There was a little mix-up there, and we tag teamed on it. But
Okay.
Dave will help me out where I make a mistake.
Okay.
How's that? As you recall, on your last agenda, we discussed and had a presentation from EID talking about the drought regulations and the condition in El Dorado Irrigation District at this time. One of the issues that brought up but was not on the agenda as an action item was the issue of our conservation efforts. And we explained to the council at that time that we would bring this back to you for your consideration. Based on the state regulations, the city at this time has 2 options that we could consider for the summer. One is to adopt a specific percentage of conservation, which would be 25%, because we are considered a small agency. We're not given a specific requirement as the others have been given. We're just lumped in with all of the small agencies that they give that amount of 25% reduction. The other option is to agree to certain restrictions, and one of those restrictions is that we would restrict watering throughout the summer through September. Is that right, Dave, when that restriction is in place? To 2 days per week. Part of the issue that we discussed at the last meeting was the fact that EID had changed their summer regulations to every other day. Since that time, at their most recent meeting, they actually changed that now to 3 times per week, not twice per week, but 3 times a week. So they still will be a little bit different than what we are. But we feel, for example, I believe that our conservation last year, Dave, was about 14%. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you can see to get to 25% from that 14 would require some pretty drastic measures. Where if we adopt the 2 days per week outdoor watering during the summer, we're not necessarily required to reach that 25%. Hopefully we do better and continue to look at that and enforce that. We are required to enforce those rules. So that is the purpose of this item on your agenda tonight. We've included some more information about here. The 2 days per week is just one of the things. There's other regulations and issues that we have to follow and enforce. And we will do that. And we already have, when we're at this point, mainly based on observation and complaint. We have answered complaints about people water running down the street or watering when they're not supposed to, and different things like that, washing down driveways and things like that. So with that, myself or Mr. Warren will be happy to answer your questions on this item.
When you get those complaints, who follows through on them?
Primarily the finance department, Dave Warren.
Do you literally get in your car and go out and check it out, or?
We have. We've
Okay.
gone out and taken pictures and
Okay.
confirmed the complaints.
Okay.
Because the complaints we receive are mostly from the public, neighbors,
Sure.
passerbyers.
Yeah, well, that's, yeah. Okay. Anyone, any other questions?
If it weren't, if we had a, what were we discussing, the code enforcement, would that be their job?
Yes.
Would it shift from Dave to?
Yes.
Could be, and it's not really in that realm, but what we plan on doing, and we're working on that, is asking all of our employees that are out to use them kind of as our enforcement, not necessarily to, you know, all the time stop and enforce it like that, but to report abuses as they see it, and then we will send out warnings and then go from there to issue other citations if necessary. So.
Any other questions? Okay. Council? Oh, I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the public would care to come forward and comment on this.
Susan Rodman, member of your glorious Measure H committee. And I think this is the most logical way to go to conserve water in Placerville, because last year we had watering 3 times per week, and if we only reduce by 14%, that says watering 3 days a week is not going to get us there. The other thing I'd like to make sure is that we make sure to use our Measure H funding as to repair those leaks in pipes, so that, because that's part of conservation too, is a leaky water system wastes an awful lot of water. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Sue. Anyone else? Comment? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the council. What is your pleasure?
I'd like to ask a question. Do we have the 2 days picked? As to which days, will they be like the weekend or?
Yeah, no, it's already in place, and it's based on your address.
Is it?
Dave, can you help me out with that?
That's
I
correct.
believe it's in
So
here, but-
from April 16th through November 15th, odd days, or your odd, excuse me, if your address ends in an odd number, your days are Tuesdays and Saturdays between midnight and 10 a.m. and then from 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. And then for even ending number addresses is Wednesdays and Sundays during that same period of April 16th through November 15th. And again, the same times.
Thanks. John?
If you like collect water in a bucket when you're waiting for the shower to get hot, can you use that water anytime?
No, you don't.
No.
Hold it till Tuesday.
No. You see, I already probably have a well-earned reputation, but I'll tell you, I think that is an important thing. If you're out there emptying buckets of water and you just happen to do it any old day, but you've saved the water.
Well, they weren't asking us to shower only on those
I
days.
think let me try and answer that.
You don't want to know that.
You can shower on any day.
These requirements for outdoor water, and I believe apply to potable water. At that point, I would call that recycled water, and
Okay.
therefore not meet the guidelines. Is that right, Dave?
That's my
I could see somebody's
understanding.
neighbor going after
Go for
somebody.
it.
However,
Yeah.
That is a
However,
good
we have a
question,
lot of
because I
neighbors.
had that concern. We have a little pot, and I'll take my recycle. I mean, it's just like my son's little. But I'm like, what if I get caught? You know, they don't know that it's your bath.
It's not the right day.
Yeah, they don't know where the water came from.
Yeah,
That's
a
what
good
I was going to
question.
say is a lot of people are watching what's going on out there, and we may get a call. So just
And El Dorado
So-
Disposal is a neighborhood watch on, so there, we
I don't
better
think
alert
you'll be out
them.
there in the dark doing it.
They come on Friday. So it's not even, oof. Thank you.
With that, I move staff's recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Council reports from other agency meetings. Transit, Tricia.
We did not have a meeting.
Transportation,
Did not have a meeting.
LAFCO, Patton.
Meetings tomorrow.
SACOG, Clarici.
We had a meeting, and actually the most interesting thing that happened in that meeting came afterwards. There was a report on I unfortunately didn't bring my cheat sheet with me, but essentially it's a farming marketing, farming interface with urban areas, kind of farming compatibility and sort of urbanizing areas. Also, though, it also is like farming as a revitalization tool. It has most applications to the valley kind of parts of SACOG. But once again, this is kind of an interesting thing because where El Dorado County is so far ahead of some of these things, because essentially quite a component of it literally was describing ranch marketing, which this county didn't pioneer, but it adopted 40 years ago, and is really one of the major tourist attractions of this area now spinning off into vineyards and whatnot, but starting off in Apple Hill essentially. And it always is amazing to me the kind of the cool things that are going on in this county that a lot of us probably don't even think about very much. Anyway, that's my report on SACOG.
Okay, and I don't have a report from SEDCOR. Okay, request for future agenda items. Do we have any requests? I think at this time I'd like to have city manager look into the prospect of maybe having prayers at our meetings. That we had it many years ago and it was discontinued, and I thought it was, you know, some government or a clue or somebody said, no, you can't do that, but I understand it's the council, it's the mayor and the council's prerogative, so.
I would second that.
Okay.
Doesn't the county have a different non-denominational
It would
prayer
be
from different
John, do you want to?
churches in the area?
As long as the prayer is non-denominational, so it doesn't identify any particular religion, or would be identified with any particular religion, it's fine. You don't want to have something that identifies it necessarily as something tied to Christianity versus Buddhism or some other type of religion. So it's fairly innocuous in that regard, but it is legal to do it. The Supreme Court decision many years ago has not been overturned.
Okay.
It can still be done. And so it is the prerogative of the mayor and the council to do that.
And if I remember correctly, they ask different pastors and ministers from different, one thing a lot of the churches have lay minister now and stuff. Is that admissible?
I don't really think it makes a difference who recites the prayer.
Okay.
It's the content of what is being said that's important.
What are you allowed to call him? Or are you allowed to say Lord or God, or do you have to, I mean, or whoever you're praying to?
God is probably okay. The use, let's say, of Jesus Christ in a prayer would definitely pertain to Christianity and would be something that I think somebody could complain about.
But you could say God.
God, yes.
Because everybody.
I know. I've sat in like, especially funerals. They get into like directions and stuff like that. So I don't know how vague we'd have to be. But God's pretty. I mean, who's your God? That's who we're talking to. I mean.
Well.
That's pretty generic.
Yeah.
Good question.
Any other requests? Okay, city manager and staff reports. 15.1, receive and file the background report on medical marijuana dispensaries and related ordinances within the city of Placerville. Mr. Morris and Mr. Driscoll.
I think it's my turn. And just starting off, I apologize for the length of the report, but as I was getting into this and reviewing the history, it got kind of lengthy, to say the least.
We
also,
have a long history.
all of the alphabet soup in there, I apologize for that too, but that was a lot easier than typing out all those words. At any rate, this actually goes back to 1996 when Proposition 215 was passed, the Compassionate Use Act. That was later amplified in 2003 by SB 420, which established the medical marijuana program, which, among other things, provided for identification cards for caregivers and their patients. The issue came to the forefront in Placerville in 2004 when we were having numerous requests by individuals to open up medical marijuana dispensaries. We had no ordinance in place to regulate them, and so at that point, the question was still uncertain as to whether or not you had to allow a medical marijuana dispensary, whether you could ban them. So the council adopted an urgency ordinance establishing regulations and provisions for medical marijuana dispensaries. The applications were all processed through the police department at that time. In fact, through the entire existence of that ordinance, they were. In 1996, there was a United States Supreme Court decision, Gonzalez versus Raich, because there was this inherent conflict between the Federal Controlled Substances Act, which prohibited marijuana and made it illegal, and the CUA, which legalized it for medical purposes. And in that case, the United States Supreme Court upheld the prosecution of individuals for possession of medical marijuana under the Federal Controlled Substances Act. So there still was this conflict going on in 1990 or in 2006. As a result of that decision and the continued uncertainty, the matter came back before the council in 2006, and staff at that time was recommending that we adopt an ordinance prohibiting medical marijuana dispensaries. There was a considerable discussion at that meeting, and the result was that staff was directed to meet with some of the interested parties and see what could be developed with respect to either a new ordinance or amendments to the ordinance. Probably over a period of about six weeks to 3 months, staff met with advocates of medical marijuana and developed some amendments and modifications to the ordinance. Those were brought back to the council along with the options of continuing on with the ordinance as it existed at that time, or repealing the ordinance and banning the dispensaries. Council elected to adopt those ordinances, and they were incorporated into the existing ordinance and placed additional safeguards and controls of the operation of dispensaries. However, that really didn't resolve the problem. In fact, it kept getting murkier and murkier as a result of some case decisions and issues that came up with respect to how do you administer this. And the state was not giving us very good guidelines at this time. All of this resulted in the council in 2010 adopting a temporary moratorium on dispensaries, which later resulted in in 2011 a repeal of the ordinance and banning them within the city. Some of those issues which came to surface as a result of these case decisions were issues like how much marijuana, medical marijuana, can somebody possess. I think it was SB 420, I think, established that there was a certain amount of ounces an individual could possess. As a result of a particular case decision, People v. Kelly, California Supreme Court decision, that got thrown out. And the court said, well, a person may possess an amount that is reasonably related to their medical needs. Okay, how's an officer going to determine whether or not a certain quantity that somebody has in their possession is reasonably related to their medical needs? It even got more confusing when the court, although it was attempting to clarify situation, talked about who can dispense marijuana and who can you get it from. And in that case, the court held that it had to be a primary caregiver, had to be someone who consistently provided caregiving, was independent, that caregiving was independent of any assistance in taking medical marijuana, and at the time he or she assumed responsibility for assisting the medical marijuana. They had this pre-existing relationship. So the idea was that, and the court commented on these cannabis clubs where somebody can go in, they have their card which allows them to get medical marijuana, and they can just sign up and buy it. And much like the dispensaries where somebody can walk in, purchase marijuana, they've got the card, they've got the ability to buy it because they've got the doctor's prescription, they sign up, you're going to be my caregiver, and now they buy the marijuana. Personally, I don't think that was what was intended with the law, and it also created a lot more issues with respect to how do you enforce this? How does an officer determine that there is this pre-existing relationship? How do you know that this person really qualifies as a caregiver? I think these are the kinds of things that led the council in 2011 to make a determination that they were going to repeal the ordinance and ban the dispensaries. The one thing that did come out with clarity since then is the Riverside case said, yes, cities and counties can ban dispensaries. You have the ability to do that. You don't have to allow them. It's under zoning ordinances is the way that's done, but they have that ability. That's kind of a Reader's Digest version of what's happened over the last 10 years. What's going to happen in the future? There are two bills pending. AB 266 is probably the most prominent one. The author is Assemblyman Cooley from Rancho Cordova. And this bill places a lot more of the regulation and permitting in the hands of local jurisdictions. Although there is initially a state permit process, ultimate permitting is with the local jurisdictions. So a lot of people, I think, in law enforcement are in favor of this bill. The other bill, which is a Senate bill, leaves more of the determinations of licensing and permitting in the hands of the state, not in the local jurisdictions. And I think 266 is probably the bill that is in the forefront right now on this issue. It's fully expected that in the next general election there will be a ballot initiative to legalize the use of marijuana in California. So a lot of things can happen in the next couple of years, and as I said in the report, the future's a little bit unclear as to where it's going. I didn't take a position with respect to this because I don't think that's what the council was asking for, but I did want to try and give you as much of the history that I could recall, and since I was city manager during most of those times, it was pretty familiar to me.
Okay, John, since you were the one who requested this, does that answer your question? Is that the reason you want?
It does in part. I mean, I had not been thinking about this until a citizen came and asked the question. And so since then, the citizen and I got together and we chatted, and I think with all of you, in fact. And then I also did a little bit of digging on my own and talked to some folks that I knew that were involved either in the city government at the time or were familiar with it. And my understanding was, I mean, thank you very much for all the whys and wherefores and the sort of legal stuff, and that's all very important. But it seems to me that what happened in town, though, was that there was a dispensary working and then it went bad. And I'm going to use my own words, and I'm going to try to get this as right as I remember it being. So there was some time when it was okay, and it wasn't an issue, and it functioned and, you know, did its thing. And then it stopped, and that got to be a problem, and it got to be a big enough problem that the city council finally went, we don't want to deal with this anymore, and there was an action that was taken. So I guess the question really in my mind is, can this venture be done in such a way that you have the former and not the latter? And yes, there's not enough guidance. That is a given. I'm certain that there are concerns with law enforcement and the whole thing. But it seems to me that if it is something that can be done without the negative things, then we should at least maybe think about trying to figure out a way to emulate that model and not the other. Because presumably, if that business had continued on and that model, we wouldn't have this discussion today. We would be operating with something. The other thing, too, is, and this is going to sound horrible, this is a product that gets sold, and if there's a way for us to make, you know, we need to run a city, and if there's a way to enhance our revenue with through this product, it is a legal thing, even though that legality is somewhat murky at times, especially if you have the federal and state issues. But it is a legal thing. We sell all sorts of products legally in this town, which do have their own pitfalls. For example, alcohol. You know, a local alcohol distributor could be selling it to minors. That would be something that was patently illegal. That activity could lead to all sorts of bad things. We haven't shut down selling liquor in the city of Placerville. It still is a thing. I know that this is not this is an apples and oranges comparison, but it does exist. So I would like to maybe find out a little bit more about less about the sort of legality issues of it in that issue, and more about the model that was actually, and this is, like I said, I have a sample of about 4 people or 5 people that I've talked to, but they've all sort of told the same story about what happened during that time frame. So, once again, if it's a legal activity and someone wants to pursue a legal activity, we should at least try to figure that part of it out as well, not just the whys and wherefores and the sort of the history of the legislation. The other thing too is that if this does become illegal, if there is this thing that happens in 2016, and it does become legal, we might be sort of in the forefront of that, doing it well. Because I don't think anybody would mind if it was done well. I think there would be okay. And anyway, so that's my thing.
May I comment?
Yeah,
on that?
but please,
Okay.
by all means.
You're absolutely right. There were 2 dispensaries that actually operated within that period of time in the city, not at the same time, one after the other. The first one, as far as I know, I heard no complaints about. And my understanding, it was operated well. Chief of Police Nielsen at the time told me that when that dispensary closed, the operator of the dispensary went to him and said it was just too much of a headache and he didn't want to do it anymore. Now, whether that was true or not, I have no idea. The second one was fraught with problems. They had employees that they didn't get cleared to the police department. They had terrible no financial records, all that. And so when they came up for renewal,
that's what's precipitated.
The police department, the chief decided not to renew their license. They appealed to the council, and the council upheld that denial. There was, at that time also, and I didn't mention this in my report, but there was a white paper that was put out by the police chiefs, and I didn't attach it. It's like 56 pages long. That was associated, yeah, and it talked a lot about the issues and the problems associated with dispensaries, crime, all those kinds of things. Not surprising, and so that was something that the council did get at that time and considered when they ultimately made their decision. Despite my comments about what the law intended as to who would be a primary caregiver, it's obvious what is happening throughout the state of California is that storefront operations are, calling themselves collectives or whatever, but they're storefront. It's the way that it's going with that. So it's not, I can stand on principle all day long, but practically what's happening is something different than that. So, you're right. City of Sacramento does legalize dispensaries, and I think taxes, I think it's 4% of their gross revenues. So they see it as a very good source of cash. And if it gets legalized in 2 years, you might as well be at the forefront.
Well, yes. Yeah. I know there's more to it, and once again, and it seems, from what I understand, the information that I received, the gentleman who was part of the former is the gentleman who is here today to talk to us about this. Mr. West, I shouldn't call you the gentleman. It's like you're not there, but but that Mr. West was part of the former, not the latter. So it would be. I think those are all salient points.
Anyone else on the council have any questions, comments for John?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, John, first of all, I want to say that I have approached this with a very open mind and thinking about it. Thank you for your report. It was helpful to review all of that background information, and I think we are all open to possibilities. But my question for you, John, is there the framework at the state level in order for us to do this well in the city? It seems that with my research that I've done, that framework is just not there because there is so many ambiguities with the law.
I think you're correct. I'm hoping that AB 266 provides that. And one of the other things I didn't mention to Councilmember Clarici is that part of that problem also was that everything fell on the police department to process. And to go through the applications, it would take months to go through an application because they had so many other things and were so short of resources. That's another issue that was very difficult for the council to get past in determining whether or not to keep on. Because we had to do so much here locally because the state wasn't doing anything.
Right. And the police department doesn't have the tools, the enforcement tools they need, because it's just so ambiguous as to how much someone can possess, who is a caregiver. There's just no regulation on any of that. So we're basically turning our police department loose and saying, good luck with this.
What you're trying to do is you need to have regulations that at least give you the control over who the employees are, making sure that, you know, they're not people with felonious records, for example, that the business records are properly kept so you know that what's going on complies with the state laws as to what they can do with the money they make. You know, they're not supposed to be per se for profit, those kinds of things. And the money isn't being laundered by organized crime or those kinds of things. So there's a lot of things you have to do. And I mean, one of the problems they had with the existing dispensary that ultimately they denied the license renewal was that they had to go in and try and do an audit of their books. And they actually got somebody from the DA's office to help them do it, what books there were.
Yeah,
but
they were a joke.
Yeah, yeah. It is labor intensive.
So if we were to look at this inside the city of Placerville and, you know, get ahead of the curve, potential curve that's coming, I mean, would we have any tools to license and to review and to ensure that it's being done well? I mean, are there any tools?
Yeah. When it came back to the council in 2011, one of the options that the council had was to adopt additional amendments to the ordinance. And I can dust those off, but I remember them pretty well. And we built in a lot of additional tools within those amendments. The council elected not to utilize those and to go in a different direction. But we did build in a number of tools. Now, I think if AB 266 gets passed, there'll even be greater opportunity for that.
Yeah. I mean, looking through AB 266, I actually read it today, and it does put, I like the idea that it's putting a local control back, and that it, you know, will provide a way to license dispensing facilities, cultivation sites, as well as medical marijuana products. It makes conditional licenses subject to restrictions of the local government in which the facility operates. It establishes a system of certification for employees, and it clarifies enforcement roles, among many, many other things. So I think it's moving in the right direction. And there is a committee hearing on this bill on May 28th. So it's moving forward at the assembly level. However, that if this is enacted, it won't come into play until January 2018. So it's still several years out, which I thought was kind of interesting. So anyway, let's.
I have a quick question, and it might be for Mr. Driscoll, and that is, I know you say you did some amendments in 2011, but could the city on its own take AB 266 and adopt the framework within our ordinance? Those very things that
For the most part, I think we could.
So we could use the framework without reinventing the wheel.
Yes.
And not have to wait till 2018.
Correct. As long as the state doesn't take it away from us at some point in time. But,
well,
I mean, right now, it's a void. There is no law which says we can't do that. And I think we could and adopt a number of those regulations. Yeah, yeah. If the Senate bill was adopted,
that's true.
That would preempt some of those things.
So.
And I have one other question, and that has to do with the tax. You said that the city of Sacramento imposes a 4% tax. Is there a regular sales tax imposed, or is it considered a food item? Or is it just the 4%, or is it 4% plus the
Kurt
sales?
could probably answer that better than I could, but I.
Our sales tax.
Sales.
So it's not a food item. It's not considered a food item.
I think you can get sales. I could be wrong, but I think you can get sales tax. But I think Sacramento has done a gross revenue tax, which is probably producing more money, even though it's a lesser percentage.
So it is independent of the sales tax, is what what I'm hearing you
I
say.
read that somewhere too, John. I read a 4% surcharge tax somewhere. Yeah.
No, he's saying it's only 4%.
Well, it could be on top of the sales tax. In other words, it could be sales tax plus a 4%
that's what
surcharge.
I mean, that would make more sense to me than just a sales tax.
I didn't research that.
It says on your report, it says, as an example, the city of Sacramento imposes a business operations tax on MMDs equal to 4% of each dollar of gross receipts from the sale of medicinal marijuana and related products.
Yeah, it's not a sales tax.
No.
But as long as it's taxable under sales tax, it's not a, quote, food item or something like that, you could conceivably have both sales tax and a business operations tax.
I think Carol brings up a good point, though, because they do bake brownies. It's a food item.
But that would involve a secondary product.
Right.
I mean, I know it says
It does say related
products, but you would have to have commercial kitchen, and you would have to, it would be a whole different.
Okay, I'm gonna,
than just
Well, no,
medical
I'd like to-
dispensary.
I just, one more, just
Okay.
one thing. It seems to me that maybe what we would try to do here is to do what was mentioned in the staff report, and apparently when the subject came up the first time, there was a group put together to sort of examine it. Now, we have some history to work on, so we don't necessarily have to reinvent a wheel. Plus, we did have the ordinances and the beefy ordinance that didn't get done. Plus, we have other things that are going on, as you point out, in this thing. So it might be, and I'd be curious to hear from the public, from Mr. West, Kurt. Well, okay. Anyway, about a way to proceed. I would like to push the ball a little bit forward, just to let you know. I would like to push this ball a little bit further down the road and maybe start to organize those thoughts. It doesn't mean that we're going to prove anything. It may still come to a place where we all decide, no, this isn't something we want to do right now. But I think it would be kind of interesting to start to aggregate that information and maybe see if there isn't a way to do this. I would like to just give you a personal anecdote. I was at an unrelated get-together with my family and spoke to somebody who has a child that has severe epilepsy, and they basically cannot function. They literally have a series of seizures, and they're frequent and they happen all the time, and the person cannot function. And finally, they turn to an extract of marijuana, and they have been able to get to the place where this person is now functioning. And there's always a little titillation whenever we talk about marijuana, even those of us who grew up with it, those many years ago, that there's this sort of titillating factor. But there is a real thing out there, and we should not lose sight of that. And I understand that there's issues with law enforcement. I understand there are going to be issues in the community, and I understand all those things, and that's why we need to go through a process that's organized. But I also think that we shouldn't turn, just because there's these titillating things, away from this one particular subject, just because it's something that everybody kind of, ooh, it's marijuana, and we get all kind of crazy about it. So anyway, I'd be curious to hear from the public.
well, before we ask Mr. West, I'm gonna ask Chief Heller to give us his overview of this.
My overview is pretty consistent with what the city attorneys said. The Assembly Bill 266 aims to bring in regulation and strike a balance between public safety and the needs of the compassionate use end user. And there's currently no regulation, and we're not just talking about the storefront and that sort of thing. We're talking about transportation of this product, how it gets grown, where it comes from. There's a huge, in speaking to some of my colleagues from Colorado that brought some of their stories from the recent passage up there, recreational, there's a whole new challenge now they're dealing with of the unregulated black market sale, if you will, to all the other states perhaps that's being produced in Colorado. So it's just more of what the city attorney said. It's very challenging, a lot of moving parts. I'm very hopeful, as are the majority of the chiefs of police in the state of California, that Assembly Bill 266 will provide the necessary regulation in a comprehensive manner. And so I guess that'd be my 2 cents, is I don't think it's that far off. I think that you could adopt those regulations. However, what you would miss is the conditional license issued by the state, which then conceivably puts the resource intensive background and pre-screening on the state revenue side, not the local resources. So that's a huge component that I think AB 266 resolves, which was a challenge, it sounds like, in the city of Placerville in the past. So that process would be that a preconditional license, a brief background done by the state, and then deferred to the local level for final approval, and then a series of regulations. So I guess that's my 2 cents. I think the conversation is evolving in our jurisdiction and many jurisdictions, but like I said, I haven't met or talked to a chief yet in the state of California that isn't very supportive of 266 as opposed to cities going alone, because that's what we've done in the past, is individual cities have gotten out in front, and we've ended up with sort of this hodgepodge unregulated industry, if you will, which doesn't speak specifically to the need, because the end user is, for the most part, in my experience, in my law enforcement career, since this has come into effect, but the Compassionate Use Act and 420, the end user has been pretty much allowed to use their medicine. Law enforcement is pretty universal on that. So the issue is that storefront private enterprise part of it, which lacks regulation at this time, and so that's my 2 cents. I guess.
Have you been in touch with the chief from Sacramento? Like John was saying, that there are quite a few dispensaries. I see them advertised all the time in the Sacramento Bee. So it's out there, and have you heard any reports from Sacramento?
I haven't talked to Sacramento specifically. I talked to various chiefs. Citrus Heights chief is very well versed in this. Chris Boyd. There's other chiefs down in the valley that I've spoken to. Not Stockton, Modesto, Sierra Central Chiefs Association, all those chiefs, and they're all looking at the same challenge here. And again, hopeful that we can get 266 would be the answer to that, because again, it's been it has the input of compassionate use end users, it has the input of the law enforcement community, it has the input of legislators. So that seems to be the hope, is we can introduce something finally to resolve that.
Okay, thank you. Did any rest of you have any more questions for the chief? Okay, at this time I'm going to open it up to the public, and I think we have Mr. Kirk who would like to talk.
Go ahead.
You have to go up to, oh. There you go.
Hi, I'm Michael Christensen. I represent El Dorado caregivers. If I might just pass out what our employee handbook would look like.
You need to give it to our acting city clerk.
I think that I want that to really speak to what our relationship would be like with the city, and understandably, definitely, there is this brackish water between the state and city and necessarily county like guidelines. Like every county gets to then decide what these kinds of ramifications and guidelines look like, and then it's broken down further by the city. I want that paperwork to show that what our responsibility would sound like and will look like. And I wish I had a PowerPoint presentation like the waste management guy, because that was awesome. But when I was in school, I couldn't even work PowerPoint. I don't think it worked the right way. But I've been in this industry legally. I've been in and out of all of the gray areas for 15 years. And my partner is is also have been in this business since 1989, and he's a Cal-educated biochemist and runs Environmental Concepts, which is a store that's been in business since 1989 in Berkeley. This business, this dispensary, this caregiving solution would benefit society or this community. It's a sustainable venture, and then you have the paperwork. So I believe in it wholeheartedly, and there are many people behind this organization that want to see this benefit this community, and want to do everything possible for our mutual success.
Okay. Okay, let me go and get him unnumbed a little bit. Just sitting and walking here. Okay. I'm Kurt West, and I went ahead and want to reiterate a few things that Mr. Driscoll said, that he's right, that in 2006 we did have a club and it was running just fine. And what happened is that in 2007 I had a stroke. I found out that I went ahead and my partner was embezzling several $100,000. So I had my attorneys close that club down. You've all admitted in the past that that club ran fine, no problems whatsoever. And so I want to go ahead and go back to me. And now that I got rid of the bad guys, the police didn't, the DA didn't, but I did. And I want to go ahead and reopen my club the way that it was in the beginning, with me there and me making sure that it's run according to state law. And that's what I know, is California state law, SB 420. And I know that I was doing good for the citizens of not only Placerville, but for El Dorado County. And whether there be murky water, as you call it, here and there, it's everywhere. It's prevalent in all businesses. But you got to know what to look for. In this business, I do. I've been in this business for 40 years, and I know it quite well. And I know that you just can't go ahead and, for example, if I wanted to hire Martha Stewart, under your regulations, I can't, because she's a convicted felon, a nonviolent convicted felon, but she's a convicted felon anyway. And some of these people getting out of prison are nonviolent, and I'm not condoning what they did in any way, but hey, they paid their price. They paid for their crime, and if they need help, I don't know why I could not hire somebody like that to get them back on the right track, instead of just go ahead and just brushing them aside like 99% of the other people do, because, whoa, he's a convicted felon. And there's all sorts of felons, I should say. You know, the variation varies immensely. But I want to go ahead and I just want to reopen, like I said, my club the way that it should be. I know how to run a club. I know everything there is to know about it. And in order to go ahead and do this, you can't do it with your guidelines from the past in 2006. They're not viable, period. They're unconstitutional, most of them. And so now I want to go ahead and I want to get back on track. And sorry, a little shooter there, I call it. But I want to get back on track, and I just want what was taken away from us, all of us. I mean, the chief talks about crime. When I opened my club, when George was around, crime dropped, because I got rid of the street kids, the street people hanging out from behind the building on the trail there, doing a dope there or alcohol. The neighbors came up and praised me for getting rid of the crowds that were hanging out in the parking lots. So I've done really well. And for that reason there, I like to go ahead and continue, and I want to work with everybody. But just delay, 2 years not far away. Well, in 2 years' time, I probably won't have any feet because they're going to be amputated for my neuropathy because there's no cure. So time is of the essence to me. And I'm very passionate about this. I know there's bad guys out there. I know who most of them are. I've lived here for 37 years, so you get to know people. But then you got the majority that actually need it, and it helps them. And those are the ones that I am fighting for. And that's what I want to do. And you guys can throw your politics and everything else. Hey, this thing is forever changing. Everybody's got different, wherever you go, it's different politics, different rules, regulations. But you got California state law, and that's it. So the law is the law. And that's what I go by. And I hope you give me this chance to go ahead and prove it. And like I said before, you know what? If you guys don't like the way I'm running the club or if something comes up where you have a concern, contact me and let me know. So we can go ahead and I can meet with the chief or whoever and discuss this and correct it. But I don't foresee that because I'm too sharp. They're not going to get away with it. Just like when I was able to walk again and got up from my stroke, and I found out that my partner embezzled like they did. And I say they because he's not the only one. But I nailed him, and I did right by closing him down. And so now I'm better to the point where I'm talking to you now. And I think delaying this is a travesty. Why delay it? We all know it. It's just like alcohol. It's better than alcohol. At least you can go ahead and smoke a joint and function. Can't have 5 shots and wait a half hour and drive a car. So that's what I want to do. I just want to reopen my club, and I just ask for, again, just give me a chance. I mean, I don't know what the big thing is about just giving somebody a second chance. I say second chance, because that's what it would be since we had the first one anyway. And it was ran right. And the second one, I don't know about the second one, so I'm not going to comment on them. Except for you all said they're bad. I agree with you. They're bad. So I just want to go ahead and I just want to reopen El Dorado Pain Reduction Center. I chose that name. I'm the founder and CEO. I chose it for a reason because that's where I live. And I want to go ahead and help people, as John said, or Mr. Clichy said, sorry, that it helps so many people. And the variations of medical marijuana, the strains are grown for specific reasons, for people with tremors or any type of neuropathy. It helps, and it helps alleviate the pain without prescribing opiates, which really screws our kids up, and that's out there on the street on a daily basis. And so anyway, that's what I had to say, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for Mr. West. Oh, Mr. West, before you sit down, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Wendy has a question for you.
Okay.
Sorry to catch you before you.
That's okay. I need to stand up and get some blood circulating anyway.
All right. As you know, we've all looked at this issue a lot and met with you privately, and as you say that you are kind of you're the man behind the successful operation, and as you say, you know how to do this, you know the laws, you're the magic that makes it happen, and it makes it happen well. What would happen to your club if you were not able to operate your dispensary?
My second in command would go ahead and take over.
Ultimately, it's a new partnership. There's new management.
Yeah, everybody is new on the board of directors.
I need to ask you to come to the microphone. We can't hear you.
It would be he's the head of the house, no doubt. But it's new management as well, and it's going to be it's a much more reinforced system.
Thank you.
To cover some of your concerns, I think this
operation, should it be granted, would not fail,
And it would benefit the city, not to
would definitely
interrupt,
not
but
fail the city.
Okay.
Should we be granted
Okay.
this.
Chief Heller, along the lines of what they're telling us, excuse me, are the operators, do you have to, do they have to submit some sort of, do they have to go through a process of being approved for this operation?
Currently, there's not a
Whatever,
process.
I mean, I don't know, what
Yeah,
are the rules?
eventually I would envision there would be the employees as well, I mean, the background, et cetera. And again, a big issue is the product getting to the facility. Where's that coming from? Where's that regulation? I know in my own my investigative days, we worked a tragic case involving a dispensary out of the Bay Area that resulted in eventually a homicide in our jurisdiction. Throughout that investigation, we realized what was occurring is, and this is an example of the lack of regulation, is that particular dispensary was taking in product from individuals, and what they were doing is logging, they look at their ID and logging the address of the individuals, and then they would later go do home invasion robberies on these people that were trying to just do a good deed. So there again is an example of a lack of regulation. So there's where's the product coming from, how's it getting to point of sale, et cetera, et cetera. So employees being backgrounded would definitely be a part of that, similar to taxi drivers and that sort of thing.
Okay.
we have John, who's our sheriff. He goes ahead, and the people that I've used in the past are still around. They've been around for 50 years doing this. But John has went ahead, and his officers go out to their properties who want to go ahead and grow, either for themselves or a club, and they go ahead and they get certified. So when they have a flyover by Detective Rath in the helicopter, he looks down at a grow site. All he does is radio in or pushes in a number there, and it's right there that that's a good guy. He's already been approved by the sheriff. The sheriff has already went out there and approved his grow site. Those are the people that I used in the past, and those are the people that I want to use in the future because they are still certified by the sheriff. And I go with the sheriff because 99% is grown outside city limits. And so that's why I mentioned the sheriff.
Thank you.
And on that point, like, we do get into this brackish water again, and that's what the future bill is going to hopefully clarify. And I don't know how we can, like, ratify that conversation right here, right now, but for the fact that when this is dispensed in the city, we're responsible for it, we'll be held accountable for it, and we'll be taxed for it.
Every patient that comes in has to be certified. And what they do is they have a letter of recommendation, not a prescription, but a letter of recommendation from a doctor. The only reason it's not a prescription is because if it was, the insurance companies would have to pay for it. And they don't want to have to pay for, example, your marijuana or your drinking, but they tax that anyway. But,
okay.
And there's also this, that we will be, I mean, the state says that the city, and necessarily the county, has the ability and should do background checks on all of our employees.
Okay. All right, I'm going to bring it back to the council, and thank you both very much.
Thank you.
can I sit down?
Yes, you can sit down.
Thank you. My feet. Thank you.
We'll bring the microphone to you if there's any more questions. Cleve, I'm going to bring it back to you and ask you what you're advising. We've heard it. I know that
this isn't an action item.
It's not an action item, but I wanted to ask you, do we have any, do you?
Let me tell you one thing that I've been thinking about as we've been going through this whole process and thinking about, just this last week we went through our budget process. Several times we talked about staffing levels and where we're at and what we're able to do. One of my biggest concerns I'm thinking about is not only the operation and the process once, if it were approved, but also the time that it will take to actually put a program together. I see a lot of time and effort necessary to be put to that. I know I hear Mr. West saying it's there, we're going to follow state law, but I think I wasn't here at the time when it was operating. That was before I was here. But I did talk to the former police chief about the bad ones, I admit, the bad ones. But I think that regardless of what state law is, I think it's pretty clear from what the proposed bill that is before the legislature that there's definite needs to look at additional guidelines that should be part of this. And so I think my main concern would be is there is a lot of time and energy that is going to have to go into this process in order to make sure that it is done in the right way, just to get it up and running. Right. And then, short of this bill passing, as our chief has stated, there will be a lot of work on our part doing those backgrounds. We do backgrounds now, you know, for police officers, and I think this would be a very extensive background that we would do in this case for employees too, and it would be very time consuming. So I understand, you know, I can see all of this too, and looking at it in terms of, you know, is this a possible revenue source for the city? Yes, maybe. I think that we need to be very careful and also looking at it and stating what are the time constraints. Are we going to pay for that staffing through that? Or is the revenue increases simply going to pay for that? Is it going to be a break-even thing where we pay for the cost of review and providing the service and follow-up and making sure that it's operating in the right way? So those would be my main, without going into it, because I realize we haven't looked into it
Exactly.
that thorough, but that would be kind of my thoughts and my concerns.
Comments from council?
So are we looking for like consensus on something, or are we?
I think the only thing you could do tonight is if you want us to pursue this further, and that would be, you can't, it's not an action item, but it would take at least a majority of the council to say,
okay,
yeah, I would like you to pursue this further.
Okay. So. Well, I went into this with an open mind. I met with Mr. West personally too, and hearing all the comments and the discussion, hearing the chief, I think it's a little early without the regulation, and I don't think I would want to see it come back yet.
And we can't meet as a group to hash this over unless we call a special meeting. I think there's a lot to discuss, and maybe you could meet with us 2 at a time. I don't know that we could give you some, how we feel we could, but I do think that what John has said though is that it's, and what I've gotten tonight is it's obvious this is going to happen. And I think we should start preparing for it, you know, early on, so that it doesn't become a last-minute rush thing, that, you know, we can look into it, get all the facts and figures, and be ready for it when this is 2015, halfway through, and it's
like an agenda item.
Not an agenda
well, it would
item,
have to be, right?
If we all met, but if we did it in such a way that maybe 2 of us could meet with different, like with the chief, with whoever would be involved. And I'd like to go over these what Mr. West has presented tonight with the chief to see if that covers it. You know what I just think that there's an awful lot to look into, and I know our staff hasn't got time, so I don't know. Go ahead, answer me.
Oh, you want to go ahead, Carol? Go ahead, Carol.
Carol hit
Carol,
she hit her microphone button really hard.
Well, first of all, I don't think you can have a serial meeting.
No, I think that
so
we can't.
So, you know, to have a meeting, 2 people have a meeting with the chief and 2 people have a meeting with, I'm not really sure exactly what you were saying. I think that we should just wait until SB 266 goes through its thing, see what happens. If we get the framework that the chief needs,
I mean, we're talking about May 28th is when it's going to go through the
Committee hearing.
Committee hearings.
Tomorrow.
So, and yeah, in 2016, it's going to be on the ballot, and my guess is California's going to vote
For it.
medical or marijuana to be legal. I have a lot of concerns about the amount of time our staff spends on really weird things. And while this may not be a weird thing to Mr. West, right now our staff is overloaded with just day-to-day stuff, and to add even this on. And I would rather have a meeting about how our staff spends its time than have a meeting about medical marijuana, to be honest. And I don't mean to belittle this, because I think I'm all for raising tax revenue. I'm all for increasing the pie. And I think that this could be a win-win situation for the city and for the users, and but I just don't think this is the right moment in time for us to jump out ahead of the curve and build our own ordinance and move forward as we did in the past to our own demise. So I'm in favor of not having it come back now.
And I unfortunately, I have to second Vice Mayor Patton's comments. And I do agree with all the comments that this is the way things are going. Assembly Bill 266 has great promise. I was reading a statement from the Attorney General now. Granted, it was late 2011, but the State Attorney General comes to her own conclusion that the state law itself needs to be reformed, simplified, and improved to better explain to law enforcement and patients alike, how this can work. And she had, if the State Attorney General, she goes on to say a lot of other things, but has grave concerns that this is not possible without the state taking a very strong position on it and providing the framework to regulate this in California. I agree that, we have to ask what projects and what plans for our city that are currently underway would have to go by the wayside for our very limited staff, to take on coming up with the guidelines necessary to do this well, to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. Am I in support of AB 266? Yes. Do I have great sorrow that the timeline does not work for you? I am, I'm very sorry about that. And yet we can't sacrifice our police staff and our city staff to do the framework that the state is in the middle of doing. And it has met with unanimous support so far at the state level as this bill is going forward. So I have high hopes for it to go forward. And I think we need to let the state take the lead on this and not our staff.
John?
Well, I see some handwriting on a wall, but I think that it would be nice. I think it would be nice to move this ball forward, irrespective of some of those things. I am very cognizant of staff time, and I do respect that, and I know that that is a challenge. I might say that, this does work in some places. I mean, it's not, it's not like this doesn't work. I think there are probably models out there that we could adopt without having to reinvent many wheels, and actually come up with something that we could discuss without bending ourselves up too much and wasting too much time. There are no doubt communities that do this where they have figured out a way to sort of go through these dicey waters. I would like to see it come back, but I somehow doubt that I have the support to get that done.
Well, I'm just going to try to clarify what I was saying. Wendy indicated that this is going to come to the floor tomorrow, the 28th?
It's a committee hearing tomorrow.
Committee hearing, and if what we hear, and if it does, eventually when it does go through, I don't think it hurts to be prepared. I'm not in favor of doing it right now without a whole bunch of guidelines for our city to protect us. But I really do think that this is in the forefront, and we can't just, it doesn't do any good to keep saying no, no, no. And then our reason is why. If we had something that worked at one time and then it didn't work because it was so unregulated, if we go along with if after hearing this committee hearing, learning of it, that maybe we can take it from there and see, what we can do later on. But anyway, this is just, tonight was just it was for our,
We file, we receive, we
to
file.
receive and file, and so with that, I'm going to move on to upcoming items. Items tentatively scheduled for the next regularly scheduled City Council meeting on June 9th include dock and agreement, park and ride WPI Phase 2 EDCTA co-op agreement, Steve Herrera agreement, and Phase 1A ROW relinquishment. Anything else?
Those are the main items. I just want to mention a couple of things, though, and I'm trying to remember. Pierre, can you help me out? The upcoming historical preservation workshop is on June. Can you help me with the date? Maybe somebody else knows. 8th?
It's the 4th. The 4th.
June 4th? Okay. We are working on being able to record that in some manner, because I understand that the afternoon session, the council will not be available to see the afternoon of that. So we're working on, I saw an email today, we're working on trying to figure out how to record it. They don't want to be videotaped, but they're okay with audio. So anyway, we'll see if something can be done there. The other one I wanted to mention, June 25th here in the council chambers, there will be a small business workshop put on by SEDCOR, Randy Wagner and SEDCOR. Very well designed. I like what I'm hearing that they're going to put together there, and we'll be working with that. They've asked, I haven't talked to you yet, Mayor, so I'll put you on the spot. They would like the mayor to introduce, welcome people. Or no, excuse me, that's for the June 4th event, the historical preservation event, but possibly for June.
Okay, I need to check
also.
my calendar.
Okay.
The workshop, though, have you, we need to publicize it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's been the problem in the past, is that people haven't, they haven't known about it. And these workshops are really beneficial for even folks that currently have a business. Right. They give new ideas, and so we need to somehow.
I'm working closely with Randy Wagner on how we can better get the word out, and we will through, let's say we'll send it out through PDA on our website, possibly even go door to door with the flyers. I'll talk to Randy
I'm thinking
about
of that, if maybe
get that
we
information
could.
out, and to the other associations also, what we can distribute
The chamber
those
could
with
do
them.
an email blast too.
Yeah.
Chamber email blast is
Right,
pretty effective.
we will do that. The chamber is, Laurel is working with us on that too, so the
Is
chamber
that during
is.
the day,
This is an all-day workshop.
It's all-day workshop.
Starts at 8 in the morning, or wait, 9 in the morning, I believe.
Is this a small business or the historic?
Business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we talking
Historical preservation is all day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was
they
all day
both
too.
are.
They both are. Okay.
So yeah.
9 to.
I believe it's 9 till 4. And what they're doing is they're having.
9 to 3:30.
9 to 3:30. Thank you, Pierre. They'll have a session, and then they'll actually break up where the attendees can actually mingle and talk to the presenters one-on-one about different ideas that they've come up with and how they can get more capital for their businesses and how they can expand their business. So, and then they go back into another session and do more of that. So it's pretty well outlined how they're going to operate that.
Okay.
No, we couldn't postpone the Transportation Commission. There were some time-sensitive issues that we had to, so
couldn't do it.
unfortunately, we will be there. Are you,
Yeah,
does Transit
unfortunately,
meeting?
we'll be there.
You are meeting too? Yeah.
Which meeting are you?
Transit.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All these meetings, yeah. Okay, so June 4th, and I need to find out. Okay.
I'll talk to you more on that.
Okay.
I wanted to, if I may, just thank Cleve for giving the list of meetings, upcoming meetings. It's been very
Yes.
helpful to me, and I appreciate the extra time you take to do that.
No, that's fine. Yep.
Okay, John has a little.
Little tiny thing. I should have mentioned during one of my other reporting things, but I met some Druids on 2 Sundays ago. No, this is important. I met some Druids at the Druid Monument. They were doing something at the Druid Monument on Sunday. I was coming home from the car show. What? They were out in the street. Well, it was kind of dangerous. But the more important thing, besides learning about modern Druidry in California, which was fascinating, I also got some contact information, and I talked to them about the Clay Street project.
Excellent.
And they had some interesting thoughts about the Clay Street project. I won't bore you with them right now. And but I do have a contact information, so when it comes time to go a little bit more into that project, they definitely want to be involved.
Well done.
Great.
That's my.
They want to move the Druid Monument?
No, I'm not even going to go there.
a
I'm just going to
cliffhanger.
say they want to be involved, and that's my Druid report for the day.
Very cool. Thank you, John.
Yes.
Okay, with that, I will adjourn the meeting to our next city council meeting to be held on June 9th, 2015, 5 p.m. closed session, 6 p.m. regular session. Good night, everyone.